In this third video, I want to cover a couple of documents that are going to help you with your worksheet for rhetorical analysis. So at the end of the second video, I refer to two types of ethos, extrinsic and intrinsic ethos, and I said I'd explain them further. So in this little document box below your worksheet, there are two attachments. The first one is a little PowerPoint, very short, explaining the types of ethos. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So when I open that up, let me go ahead and make this bigger for our types of ethos. Remember, ethos is the appeal to credibility and trustworthiness, but we can further break that into two types, one that we call extrinsic ethos and one that we call intrinsic ethos. So extrinsic ethos is related to who the author is based on external stuff like education, experience, performances they've had done. Think about it as extrinsic, external stuff that builds their credibility. So what their education is, what their experience doing, in your case, experience doing experiments or studies. So that is related to the extrinsic ethos of an author. Intrinsic ethos is related to more internal stuff. So intrinsic ethos is related to the language that the author uses. Often it's the tone, if it feels authoritative. Does it feel scholarly? Does it feel like that person is knowledgeable and part of the group? All of that has to do with intrinsic ethos to establish an author's credibility. So you'll want to think about those things as you're reading through your article. All right. Now, let me get to the second attachment, which is the thesis statement. So you have to write a working thesis statement for your worksheet. So I've got essentially a little worksheet or an explanation here, and we're going to cover this very briefly. So writing your thesis statement for this essay, it has to include certain things. You've got to include the name of the article, the name of the author, how the article uses ethos, logos, and pathos, and how that use is effective. So I have a couple of examples. So I have one example right up front, and we'll look at that and see how it uses all of those elements. Jessica Valenti's article, now it should have the title, but I think that it was probably, I pulled this from a student's paper, the article was probably, title was used in the previous sentence, so it sounded a little bit repetitive. Was very successful, here's our judgment, due to her emotional connection to the audience, that's pathos. Extrinsic ethos evident by her credentials. Intrinsic ethos through her extensive knowledge on the subject. And fact-based evidence, that's logos, she used to support her claims, all of which are necessary to convince a scholarly audience in the field of social work. All right, so every single element is present. Well, I mean, technically, except for the name of the article, but that's easy enough to fix. So that thesis statement isn't arguing about the issue. Remember, it's saying that the article is successful in persuading a group of social workers. And that is what you were doing. You were trying to show that your article is either successful or unsuccessful for its use of persuasive rhetorical appeals. All right. The order of appeals in your thesis statement need to match the order of appeals in your body paragraph, okay? And you'll get to that as you go along with your outline next week. Your thesis statement should make a point about your discipline and the conventions it values in writing. So it doesn't have to be super specific here, but it should address it. In this case, we have that because we mention that these things that are successful at convincing social workers, right? So here I give you a template. You can plug in things like the name of your article, the names of your author, how ethos and logos are used, whether pathos is used or avoided, whether it's objective or unbiased, and whether it's effective or not. So you'll go ahead and plug it in and come up with a good working thesis statement. All right, let me go ahead and X out of that, because the final thing I want to cover in this video is take a brief look at the sample rhetorical analysis essay. We're not going to go over it in super depth. I'll let you do that on your own, but I just want to open it up and look at some of the things like particularly the thesis statement. So one thing you'll notice is this is an annotated document. So there are certain things that are commented on. This is formatted in MLA format, which is what you're doing. So you have all your information here with your title, your header here, and the introduction that goes down to this thesis statement. So we will worry about this kind of introductory material next week. We'll look at this essay again. For now, what I want to do is look at your thesis statement. This is the thesis statement for this essay. In the article, has the medicalization of childbirth gone too far? Johansson et al. Use ethos, logos through mostly credible evidence, there's our ethos, and statistic-based data, there's our logos, while avoiding pathos in order to write in an unbiased and objective manner, there's a judgment, which effectively persuades other healthcare professionals that birth interventions are overused. Here's our audience. We're making a judgment. It was effective. And here is a quick look at that author's purpose. Okay? So then we have the first paragraph touching on ethos. And that's important because we talked about ethos first in our thesis statement. So we have ethos addressed in this paragraph. We have ethos then addressed in a second paragraph. And you can see that this particular author calls out the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic ethos. Then we conclude, we come down and we look at logos. So we actually have 3 paragraphs, if you read through this, that are dedicated to ethos. So this particular author clearly thought that ethos was important. So then we address logos in the next section of the paper. Finally, we have a paragraph on how pathos is minimally used. And then we conclude. So we have a pretty tightly constructed paper wherein the student does 3 paragraphs talking about the ethos of the essay, 1 paragraph on the logos of the essay, and then 1 paragraph on the pathos or the lack of pathos in this essay. So you should take a look and read through this student essay carefully. All right, so that's something that you should do on your own. It's not really part of your homework, but I really recommend it. Looking at sample papers is a great way for you to feel comfortable about writing your own paper. So remember, you've got that worksheet due at the end of the week on Sunday. So any questions, go ahead and email me. All right, good luck and happy working.